What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in Black Ops Cold War's multiplayer. And in today's episode, we're going to be moving on to the final LMG, and this is the M60. Starting it off, as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, which is 50-44. This is a very high damage gun. It's going to be a 3 to 4 shot kill, although when we look at the ranges in a little bit, you'll see that it's basically almost always going to be a 3-shot kill. And also, it's worth noting that there are no body multipliers, so it's even a 3-shot kill to the toe. As for headshots, we get a standard headshot multiplier at 1.4, and essentially what this means is up close in the vast majority of your gunfights, headshots aren't going to change the number of shots to kill. It's still going to take you 3 shots to kill to the head, so don't bother going for headshots up close. And even at a distance, which is a pretty extreme distance, you will need to land 2 headshots mixed in with a body shot to still get that 3-shot kill. Now, moving on to rate of fire, this is relatively slow at 517 rounds per minute. And what this means for our time to kill value is in the 3-shot kill range, which is going to be the vast majority of your gunfights. Your time to kill is just 232 milliseconds, and this is actually the fastest time to kill value in the entire game for a full auto weapon with body shots at least. So definitely a great upside to the M60. If you're aimed down sight already and hitting your shots, you're going to be dropping people almost instantly. As for our bullet velocity, this is very respectable at 600 meters per second. It's not quite as good as the Stoner, but it's also not nearly as bad as the RPD, so I consider this to be pretty good. Then let's get into our range values, and I had to actually zoom out my typical range map here just for this gun because its range value is insane. Its base range value is 76 meters, and you would be pretty hard-pressed, outside of satellite at least, finding any sort of practical line of sight beyond this range. The vast majority of your gunfights are going to be falling well within your 3-shot kill range with the M60, which is great news. As for hardcore, I'm sure none of you guys are surprised here. The M60 is always a 1-shot kill in hardcore game modes. As for Hipfire, this is the same as the Stoner and the RPD, and that is to say that it's an amazing Hipfire spread, because for whatever reason in Cold War, the LMGs have the same Hipfire spread as a lot of the SMGs out there. And then taking a look at our idle sway, you can see here while aiming down sight, there is a little bit of sway, so it is something you have to be aware of if you're trying to pick people off at really long ranges, but outside of really long ranges, this shouldn't be a problem for you. Now, let's have a look at recoil, and when you look at the overall recoil pattern here, it doesn't look too bad. It looks like this is actually very accurate. However, a big thing to point out here is after the first shot that you fire, there is a pretty big leap upward and to the right for a few bullets before it recenters back to normal, and then all of the recoil is contained into a nice area. And these initial shots are extremely important because you obviously want to get your first few shots on target. And what I've found is if I don't use any recoil mitigating attachments, I actually find myself struggling quite a bit with that recoil on the M60. If you're spraying for a long period of time, it's totally fine, but just for those initial shots, it can really easily throw you off target, and therefore I do recommend using some form of an attachment that will help with your horizontal recoil. After that, let's move into our aim down sight time, which is very slow because this is an LMG. It's 600 milliseconds, which is the same as the RPD. And then for our sprint out time, our stated sprint out time is 450 milliseconds, although our actual experienced sprint out time in game is more like 300 milliseconds. And now let's get into our reload time. Our reload add time with the M60 is the slowest in the entire game, aside from the Street Sweeper shotgun at 6.57 seconds. So I generally do recommend using one of these magazine attachments to either increase your magazine capacity and or improve your reload add time. But finally, for base stats, let's have a look at our movement speeds, and our base movement speed is the same as all of the assault rifles and the other LMGs in the game. However, our sprinting movement speed is definitely slower than assault rifles at 125%, and our aim down sight movement speed is extremely slow at just 25%. So once you're aim down sight with this gun, you are essentially locked into place. And now it's time to take a quick look at the strengths and the weaknesses of this gun before we get into our recommended attachments and example class setups. When it comes to the weapon's strengths, we have an amazing time to kill with the M60, we've also got an amazing range value, so it's almost always going to be a 3-shot kill, and then on top of this, just like the other LMGs, we've got a great hipfire spread for an LMG. As for the weaknesses though, we have a very slow aim down sight time. We've also got that recoil jump after the first shot that you fire. You get that big jump to the right and slightly upward. And I do find that to be a little bit annoying until you get some attachments on there. You can definitely make up for this with attachments though. And then finally, we have an extremely slow reload time. Now, I did also just want to quickly mention the Task Force and the Division barrels because these ones boost your damage by 10%, which means with these barrels, our new damage profile is 55-48, which doesn't change the number of shots it takes to kill to the body. However, in its maximum damage range, if you hit both shots to the head, you can now get a 2-shot kill, which is incredibly fast. So there's definitely a good argument for using this, especially because these barrels don't increase your recoil like the Task Force barrels on other guns. And therefore, I highly recommend the Task Force barrel especially. And finally, this brings us into a couple great attachment combinations and example class setups. And the first one I've got for you guys, with this we're using the Cobra Red Dot. I just like this Red Dot sight with LMGs because it zooms you in a little bit more than the other Red Dot sights without zooming you in way too far to the point where it's no longer really effective at close ranges. Then we've got the suppressor to stay off the radar, the Task Force barrel, which allows us to get that 2-shot headshot potential, but mainly it gives us a massive boost to our bullet velocity, which is really nice. And also, it definitely doesn't hurt that this literally doubles our already amazing range potential. Then after that, we have the Field Agent Grip, which pretty much eliminates that jump to the right after the first shot, and it feels so much better using this gun once you get the Field Agent Grip on it. And then finally, we have the 100-round speed mag to not only increase our magazine capacity, but also to improve our reload time. And you can see here with this one, our range is ridiculous at 133 meters. Our velocity is also incredible, so you can pick people off across the map, no problem. We've got a nicely improved reload time, even though it is still quite slow. And really the only big thing to pay attention to with this class setup is we aren't helping our aim down sight time at all. It is still going to be very slow, but if you just treat this like the LMG that it is and hang back and try to get pre-aimed on things, then you're going to be able to lock down lanes and just annihilate people at basically any range. As for the rest of the setup, it's pretty basic here. We've got the 1911 as our secondary because we can swap to a pistol much faster than a shotgun, for instance, when we're swapping from an LMG, which is nice. We've also got the Stim Shot, Semtex, and Field Mic. And then for our perks, we are using Perk Greed. We've got Flak Jacket, Forward Intel, Scavenger and Assassin, and then finally Ninja and Ghost. So that's a fairly basic class setup with the M60. You could, of course, sacrifice one of those attachments and swap it out for something that improves your aim down sight time, which could also be nice. But now let's move into the second setup that I've got for you guys, and this one is using the Gunfighter Wildcard, which I highly recommend with this gun because it really does rely on some attachments. And with this one, we're using the VisionTech 2X sight just to get a little bit more zoom than the previous setup. We're once again using the suppressor and the Task Force barrel. This time we've got a SWAT 5mm laser, and this one is awesome for hip firing. If you end up in the same room as somebody, you're actually going to be able to compete with them fairly effectively by hip firing with this, which is great. Then we're once again using the Field Agent Grip and the 100-round speed mag. And then after that, we've got the Groot Elastic Wrap, which is amazing for our aim down sight time. This is a really nice attachment to have on here. And then finally, the Tactical Stock, just to slightly improve our aim walking movement speed. As for the rest of this class setup, I've got dual magnums for my secondary, just because I really like the dual magnums. We've once again got the Stim Shot. This time we've got the Molotov, and then we're also using an assault pack so we can replenish our ammo, which can be very helpful if you're locking down an area. And then finally for perks, we've got Flak Jacket, Assassin, and Ninja. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the M60 LMG. As for my thoughts on this gun, initially when I started using it, I hated it. It was mainly that recoil that would really get to me, and also just the really slow handling and everything like that. But I did find once you start unlocking attachments for it, it actually starts to become extremely powerful if you treat it right. It's never going to be that super versatile gun that you can rush around like crazy with or anything. But if you set it up right and you treat it right, this thing can absolutely dominate people. Of course, that is just my opinion on this gun. I'd like to hear what you guys think about the M60 in the comment section down below. And it looks like moving on from here, we are going to be getting into the tactical rifle category. And of course, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I will leave a link in the description down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.